Welcome back. The ASEAN University Network, or AUN, is an Asian university association. It was founded in November 1995 by ASEAN member countries, including 13 universities. After the enlargement of ASEAN by the ASEAN Charter in 1997 and 1999, the AUN membership has been increasing. Take a look.
It was 1967. Turbulent times in the world and no less in the region. When a handful of countries in Southeast Asia first came together to form the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, foremost on the minds of their leaders were peace and stability in the region. Cooperation and unity would not only bring about peace, but also accelerate economic growth and prosperity, social progress and cultural development of these countries. One set of initiatives by ASEAN to strengthen the foundation for a prosperous and peaceful community of Southeast Asian nations is in the field of education.
While there was agreement on the important role of education for unity and security in the region, it was only in 1992, during the fourth meeting of the ASEAN heads of governments in Singapore, were there efforts for greater cooperation in education. One outcome of this was the establishment of the ASEAN University Network, or AUN, in 1995. A significant and important ASEAN instrument in the field of education.
The concept of establishing an ASEAN university, as it were, really started when the education ministers in this region sat down for the first time in 1977. So in the past, of course, it was to support the main goals of ASEAN, which are about peace and stability and economic progress and social development. And the role of education was one of the vehicles, the sectoral vehicles to support the furthering of these regional objectives and goals that were enunciated since 1967. Along the way, of course, with the enunciation of the ASEAN Community 2015, and the three community pillars, political security, economic, socio-cultural, the role of education has also been to see how it can be a part of and to support ASEAN integration.
The ASEAN University Network began with 11 universities, and as ASEAN expanded, so did the AUN. It has since grown to become a highly visible organization with a membership of 30 universities, all of whom are nominated by the respective ASEAN member states. By serving as a policy-oriented body for higher education in the region and by fostering cooperation in research and teaching, the network seeks to strengthen the quality of human resource development and higher education across ASEAN.
So at this point in time, it's really about getting the leading universities in the region to sit down and network together, talk about issues that will have to be resolved in terms of credit transfers, accreditation, even syncing the academic semesters, and of course facilitating student exchanges and mobility, cross-border mobility for students, as well as seeing how the different academic disciplines in all these universities can also support the ASEAN integration goals and prepare the young people for professional or workplace mobility.
While there is much work to be done to realize the full potential of cooperation in education, universities in the network have benefited from their membership. The National University of Singapore is one of 3 universities representing Singapore in the AUN and has been part of the AUN since its formation 21 years ago.
We are very much part of Southeast Asia, and it's important to get to know our neighbors, the universities in our vicinity. Yeah, I think AUN has tremendous impact because we are working with young people. We're working with the top echelon of society, the people who will be the business, political leaders of tomorrow. And if we at this level can give our students favorable impressions and favorable working relationships within the region, I think it bodes well for ASEAN and Southeast Asia.
Besides institutions of higher learning, efforts have been made to promote ASEAN awareness at all levels of the education system in member countries. After the 11th ASEAN Summit in Kuala Lumpur in 2005, ASEAN education ministers identified 4 priorities in education cooperation. An outcome of this was the development of the ASEAN Curriculum Sourcebook as a tool to advance an understanding of the ASEAN identity, as well as to develop in young people a better understanding of the diversity of cultures across the region.
The motivation always was to provide a reference source for teachers in primary and secondary schools mainly, to be able to impart what is it about ASEAN to their students. And of course, this takes different forms. So rather than developing it as a curriculum and requiring countries to straight away put it into their national curricula, it has always been the intention to provide it as a teaching resource. And the Curriculum Sourcebook's main intention was to help foster that sense of the identity of being part of the region, what it means to have that kind of the cultural identity.
The extent to which the ASEAN Curriculum Sourcebook has been introduced and used differs across member nations. A major challenge is that while agreements to cooperate at the regional level are reached, individual countries still have to balance regional commitments with national priorities and interests.
It is in the interest of every ASEAN member state to maintain ASEAN as a united and strong organization. A weak and disunited ASEAN serves nobody's interest. All of us in ASEAN, all 10 of us, serve 2 sets of interests, our national interest and ASEAN regional interest. And I think when this is true of all countries, and our first foreign minister, Mr. Rajaratnam, said this in a seminal speech he made 45 years ago in August 1967.
Nonetheless, cooperation in the field of education has laid foundations of peace and stability in the region. Efforts such as developing an ASEAN curriculum and introducing ASEAN studies in schools, or even the setting up of an ASEAN university, has not only helped to bring people together, but also forged a sense of regional identity.
With a collective sense of identity as one ASEAN, the ASEAN University Network plays a major role in collaborative efforts to promote peace and stability in the greater East Asian region. The ASEAN +3 cooperation involves the AUN collaborating with universities from Japan, China and South Korea with a broader goal to promote East Asian identity and solidarity through the greater cooperation in the field of education.
And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Maricar Velasco and I am 1 with 25.